Welcome back to Season 2 of the Heart to Heart podcast. In part 2 of our conversation with Jesse Eisenberg, we dive deeper into his experiences working with a diverse range of directors and actors. Jesse shares his insights on balancing collaboration with creative control and discusses the evolution of his approach to directing and acting. From the collaborative process on Now You See Me 3 to the unique world building of The Double, Jesse offers a candid look at the dynamics of filmmaking. Join us for another engaging discussion with Jesse Eisenberg. Before you listen, be sure to support the podcast with a 5-star rating and a review.
And Jesse, I when I saw Squid and the Whale, it was once again at Sundance, and I said to myself, we got to get this director to teach. So Noah ended up teaching, and I have to say, I heard you talk about working with various directors and how you wanted to kind of model your directing from that experience of you've had that experience of working with directors that are more of like the hierarchy and the authoritative person versus the one a director who likes to have collaboration and there's a middle ground. I think you were talking to Kieran Culkin about this in an interview, like saying that the ultimate director is like someone who has who lets he commands the floor, but at the same time there's collaboration. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to ask you as far as like working with someone like Noah. Or I'm sure as far as you're working with directors, do you now, if you have your choice, gravitate towards directors that have that sense of collaboration?
Yeah, but it totally depends on the thing. Like there are certain writers, like in that movie, The Squid and the Whale, the script was like so great and so perfectly written that you didn't want to like change anything. I'm about to do Now You See Me 3, and the director of the movie is a guy I've worked with a lot, Ruben Fleischer. He directed Zombielands and this other movie, 30 Minutes or Less, that I was in. So it's more collaborative on a movie like Now You See Me 3, where the script is really great, but then you ask the actors, because they have all these talented actors playing these unusual kind of characters, to kind of improvise and stuff. So it depends on the project. The movie I did that's out now is Sasquatch Sunset. To me, it was like the most perfect script I'd ever read, but still the brothers who directed that movie wanted the actors to kind of, collaborate in a way that I was not expecting. So it really just depends on the project. Ideally, you want to work on something really good where the person is not a monster. That has, I've been lucky to get to do things like that. My favorite movie that I was in terms of director was this movie, The Double. I was playing two characters, and the director, Richard Ayoade, who's just a genius, a very kind of unusual person, he created this world around me that was so around all the actors. He created this world that we loved so much, the other actors and I, that it just felt like we could do anything and it would be part of this context of this man's brilliant vision. And that was an unusual one because it took place in this kind of unusual world. As a director, I've made 2 movies, and it's my goal to have the actors feel both that I have a good plan and worst case scenario, we do exactly what I want, but also bring yourself to it. If you're not feeling something, I don't want you to do it that way, because if you're not feeling it, it's not going to be good. The trick is just hiring good people. With this movie, I just did that with Kieran. I never like improvisation because my background as a writer is playwriting, and you're not really, no one improvises in the theater. But Kieran was so brilliant and funny that I basically like told our cinematographer, like, please, when the scene is driven by him, just follow him and let him do anything and just keep the camera on him. And we did that a few times, and it was just, it worked much better than my plan. And Kieran was even saying, I think in the interview that you may have heard, Kieran, I think, felt comfortable. I had written the script and, I had done pre-production for 6 months. So I think Kieran felt comfortable, like I had a very strong plan for everything. But I think he also felt, free to collaborate because he knew I trusted him so much.
And what's so appropriate, Jesse, is like, your character was the guy who in New York, and he has the family, and he's, got a foundation, where Kieran's character was this improvisational like guy who's sleeping on friends' couches, it seems like, and winging life through. However, you both were cousins, and you had that common denominator of your love for your grandmother. And I think that's very symbolic of the improv versus the guy who, follows word for word text.
Exactly. It was totally fitting with our characters, which is why I wanted it to work. If Kieran was playing a character that was kind of like, tightly wound and everything, I wouldn't want that person necessarily to be free and improvising because it wouldn't suit the role. But no, I mean, I had to tailor it to what the story was and what worked best. Which, luckily for us, we had an actor who just has a brilliant mind and who could do really well in that speed.
Hey, it's Brian. I'm dropping in on an important announcement. What you need to know is you have more control over your career than you think. The thing standing between you and the career you want is your connections, and that's where One-on-One Next Level comes in. If you are not a member yet, you can apply to join at oneononenextlevel.com. Press pause and do that now. If you are already a member and you are ready to get back on track, we want to invite you to book a strategy session with us led by myself personally. We will help you prioritize which classes make the most sense given your career goals. You can find these under the Resource Hub in your account portal. We can't wait to hear your success story.
So I don't want to get away from this but just for a second, I know you have a 7-year-old, right?
Sorry? Oh, yeah. I got a 7-year-old.
So I have a 6-year-old boy. And I just tried this experiment on him, and I'll be curious to see how you gravitate. So I showed him on YouTube a series of, vignettes or, vignettes from like Monty Python.
Yeah.
And then I showed him Benny Hill.
Yeah.
So, and I said, so which one, Kelso, which one do you like? And he went for Benny Hill. Really? I was just curious if you would identify yourself more Monty Python or Benny Hill as far as the comedy choices. As far as, who do you gravitate more towards?
Yeah, I mean, verbal for me. I tend not to laugh, at slapsticky stuff unless it's meta slapsticky. Like there's this show now that I actually completely inappropriately took my child to called Jack Tucker. And it's this comedian here in New York who does this one-man avant-garde alt comedy show. And it's so shocking, but he's doing slapstick, but it's like postmodernist slapstick that is like a commentary on comedians who do slapstick. It's hard to describe exactly, but my kid was laughing at that, but I contextualized it as like the ironic way that it's supposed to be contextualized. Yeah, but no, I was always like verbal. I was writing jokes when I was like, 12 years old. I wrote these like dumb jokes about sex, and I wrote it on Post-it notes. I didn't even know what sex was, but I just heard people joking about sex because I loved watching Comedy Central. I literally did not know what it was, or maybe had a vague idea of that adults do it or something. But like, I write these jokes about sex, and I remember like when I was cleaning out my bedroom at my parents' house, where I lived. I found these Post-it notes about sex, and like so that were jokes. They were just like. And I was just all about trying to find wordplay, and yeah, that was my interest. But I come from a talky family, as you could probably tell.
So Roger Dodger got you on the map as far as like, I'm sure that film probably made you, from that point on, you were like, okay, this is going to be my career.
Yes.
Would you say the next, you did a lot, but then it seems like from a distance that Social Network, after you did that, not that you're into fame or anything, but you probably could feel a different energy out there when you were walking in the streets of New York or wherever you walked. Is that true?
Yeah. What's pretty strange is like the analogy I would give it though is more like when you meet somebody who's trying to write something and they're staring at a blank page and everything seems hopeless, and then they fill out that first page and suddenly the rest of it's flowing. For me, being in that movie Roger Dodger at 18, 19 years old was like the equivalent of writing like the first page, and everything after that felt much easier. I was able to like separate myself as an actor. People could watch a movie I'd actually been in. To me, that was the difference between like having a career and not having a career. And then the Social Network is more like, writing a great chapter, which is like, oh, this chapter that that readers love to read, but ultimately it was nothing without being on the first page. And so to me, that was like, it got me to be in like some bigger movies, and it got me, I would say, to be seen as more of like a serious actor. But it really didn't change much in terms of like things I was interested in or what I was doing. It really just didn't. I don't know why that is. It really, like, being in that first movie changed everything. Like, I was suddenly in the world. I was taken seriously. I could be in plays if I wanted to. I could get meetings for movie roles. So, but for a brief period of time, after being in a popular movie, the facts are that you're like considered more bankable, just as a name. So you'll get more parts, but the parts weren't that much better. I was getting the same scripts, but now they were being offered it to me as opposed to me auditioning for them. But like, it didn't really, it wasn't like night and day. For me, just being in a movie young was night and day. That was everything.
And when did you feel like to yourself, like, oh, I've really made it? Was it really after that first one, Roger Dodger, or was it like at, some point recently, or like what was that moment where you're like, I've done it, like I'm good?
Yeah, maybe like three things. One, after being in that movie Roger Dodger and seeing, I guess it came out at Tribeca, and it was the first year Tribeca Film Festival was around, and it won the best film there. And being involved in that, I thought, oh my goodness, I could just do this. I could definitely have a career. And then I got to like host Saturday Night Live, and when I was doing the rehearsal, I was watching the singer rehearse, and I kind of like pinched myself proverbially, maybe also literally, and just thought like, oh wow, I can't believe I'm here. This is wild. Like, and then being at Sundance this past year, a few months ago, just having a movie that I made and wrote and acted and directed in that took place like, basically in front of my family's house from 1938, like to make something so kind of like small and personal on a small budget and have it be received well. That made me feel like, oh, okay, I can finally be taken seriously as a writer, because I've had plays that were successes. I've written 4 plays. They've been translated and play around the world. If not in a huge ways, but they're real plays that have been, and yet I never really felt totally validated. So
even with The Revisionist with Vanessa Redgrave.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I was doing this play, The Revisionist, as you just mentioned. Yeah, I had the greatest, actor in the English language, allegedly, playing the lead part. And yet the play really didn't like take off. We were supposed to do it on Broadway. We did it off Broadway for a while, and then we were supposed to do it on Broadway, and Vanessa couldn't, she was getting older, and I guess she felt like she couldn't commit to doing a Broadway run. And so it got canceled. And then the next play I wrote, was called The Spoils. We played on the West End, and we were the best-selling play in the history of that theater, and we were supposed to do it on Broadway. And right at the last minute, the other actor pulled out, and we lost the theater. And so I felt like I've had near misses or near makes, I guess, as a writer. And so this movie, A Real Pain, is the first one that I would say has potential to have a life.
Oh, it's going to have a life. By the way, when is it supposed to be released?
October 18th. And so they're giving it a really nice fall slot. And basically, it's, even if it doesn't do well, like it's still been validated by the right places. And so, I feel validated. Yeah, those are probably 3 times that I felt that way. But I've done so much that no one will ever see. I mean, I wrote a musical that I had this great director, Alex Timbers, doing. This was 10 years ago, because I write music, and that didn't go anywhere. I've done so much. I've had pieces in the New Yorker, but for every piece that I've had in the New Yorker, I've had 4 rejects. So I do a lot of stuff, and just, a lot of it is just rejected. That's the nature of being in the arts.
Nobody does special programs like One-on-One Next Level. It's where we really help actors shine.
I'm Emilio. I signed with my Southeast agent right after the Atlanta trip, and now I'm auditioning several times every month. And I almost didn't do the Atlanta trip because I thought it was just another cash grab. I can tell you from experience that it's not. That's not how One-on-One Next Level rolls. And here we are 6 months later, and I already booked my first job with my Atlanta agent.
I'm Rebecca, and the Bridge program demystified the industry for me. It gave me the platform to get off book in under 10 minutes. I met 60 new artists that are now all a part of my community, and I even signed with a manager. I have never walked away from a program so confident in my abilities. I'm so grateful for One-on-One Next Level.
My name is Capenna, and I can finally call myself a working actor after participating in the LA Super Showcase. I had just moved to LA and I felt stuck. I came across the LA Super Showcase, and let me tell you, it was a life-changing experience. I signed with an agent, and since then, I've been auditioning for series regulars and booked my first TV job. I finally feel like I made it to the next level, thanks to One-on-One Next Level.
In the next 12 months, One-on-One Next Level will host 27 special programs bringing you unmatched exclusive access to industry connections. Special programs aren't just a one-and-done class. Instead, they're designed to accomplish in a weekend what it takes most actors months, even years to do. So whether you want to get repped in a smaller market like Atlanta, bypass casting directors and connect directly with TV showrunners and decision makers, or spend a weekend meeting a bunch of musical theater industry professionals in New York City, you have to become a member to be eligible to sign up for our special programs. To apply, go to www.oneononenextlevel.com. We can't wait to hear your success story.
Even when you're talking about the revisionist, where you had a night where you said you felt like things would go so terribly wrong and you'd be like discovered as a fraud. That's feelings that everybody can relate to, Jesse.
Yes. I am skeptical of actors who don't feel that way. Like, I'm skeptical of the actor who is so assured of their own brilliance. I mean, I'm basically skeptical of anybody who's assured of their own brilliance, but acting requires you to kind of put yourself in a vulnerable place, to take a leap of faith, to basically make a fool out of yourself, but with really high stakes. And so to me, when I meet actors who are really cocksured, and I have met them, I just haven't been as impressed with the actor that's really worried, that's thinking about it, that because what they're doing is not just worrying about it, but they're working on it. Being an actor in really any role requires you to bring yourself to it. Some actors can be quite shallow performers, and maybe they're really attractive or some other thing. They have some natural charisma, but if you're not like kind of bringing yourself to it, I feel it can be kind of shallow. Because if we're playing a person, just like all of us, we have these layers beyond what we're expressing on our faces, and so acting, I think, requires that too. That said, I'm also skeptical of the actor that's constantly performing their own anxiety, that's on set going, "Oh, today's the big scene, that's just obnoxious, and typically what they're doing is showing people that they're kind of concerned in a phony way. As I told you, I had kind of anxiety attacks before every one of my performances, but I tried not to involve other people into it. I basically just sit by myself and freak out, because you don't want to distract people. They have their own thing going on. But typically, you should care about it. I mean, just by way of example, so Vanessa Redgrave was in this play I did, The Revisionist, and she was 77 years old. She had won every award that an actor could win. And we were performing in a 188 seat theater. So it's a small theater. And every day backstage, we do a show at 8:00. She would get there at 4:30 with her rotisserie chicken and her script. And she would sit backstage and eat and pour through her script. And I'm talking up until the last performance, she would do this. And I was thinking, wow, if this is what it takes to be really great, this person who's considered the greatest actress in the English language, panicking 3.5 hours before a performance, to me, that's wow, that's dedication, that's commitment, and maybe that's what makes her so great.
I think that's what makes everybody, it's funny, even for a job, when people come in for an interview and they come in with a little cockiness versus the person who's always feeling like, what can I do better? That's the person you want, the person who says to themselves, what can I do better?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. What can I do better? That's exactly it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't done it yet, please support Heart to Heart with a 5-star rating and a review.